Have you ever wondered why some women smile at the very moment they decide to ruin you? It's not madness. It's calculation, the kind that takes years to sharpen. For Clara, it began with a knock on her kitchen door. She was elbow-deep in buttercream, the air thick with sugar and vanilla, when Emily stepped in like she owned the light in the room. Emily, the bride-to-be, the golden one, the girl everyone said could do no wrong. Her laughter was polite, but edged the kind that asked for something without saying it. "You'll make it, won't you?" Emily's fingers trailed along the counter, tapping flour into little clouds. "The cake, for my wedding." No mention of payment, no request, just the assumption that Clara would drop everything for her because Clara always did. That's the thing about people like Emily, they count on your history of obedience. They feed on it. They build palaces on it. And if you've been cast as the quiet one, they expect you to keep your head bowed forever. Clara agreed because saying no then would have ruined the pleasure of saying no later, or maybe of saying yes and making sure the yes was poisoned in its sweetness. For weeks she worked in secret, not just baking but planning. The sugar roses had to be perfect, the sponge impossibly light. People would talk about this cake for years. They'd say it melted on the tongue like a dream. They'd never guess what else it carried. You see, revenge doesn't have to scream. Sometimes it slips between layers, invisible, weightless, and waiting. Sometimes it hides in plain sight beneath the prettiest icing you've ever seen. The truth, the one no one dared whisper, was that Emily wasn't marrying for love. She was marrying for a name, for a fortune that glittered like crystal under chandeliers. And Clara knew. She'd known before Emily had even secured the ring. She'd known because she had heard it herself. That night at the family gathering, hidden just beyond the hallway, her hands clutching a tray of champagne flutes, Emily's voice low and sharp. "I could love him, sure, but I love what comes with him more." And the laughter that followed, the kind that told Clara she was nothing but a pair of ears in a borrowed dress. That moment never left her. You know that feeling, don't you? The one that settles in your bones when someone tells you who they really are and the world refuses to believe you. You smile, you serve, you nod, and all the while you carry their words like an ember in your chest. By the time the wedding week arrived, Clara's kitchen had become a cathedral of silence and sugar. Every beat of the mixer, every careful fold of the batter was a prayer for patience, and inside that patience a plan grew. She chose the filling carefully, lemon curd tart enough to make you close your eyes. She layered it between clouds of sponge, and deep inside she tucked something else. Not poison. No, Clara wasn't reckless. She didn't want Emily dead. She wanted her unmasked. You're thinking, what could you possibly hide inside a wedding cake that would destroy someone without killing them? It wasn't a what, it was a who. A letter folded into the thinnest parchment slipped inside a plastic capsule no bigger than a walnut, invisible until someone cut the cake. Words in Clara's own hand, written in looping script with the date and time of that overheard conversation. The exact words Emily had said about her fiancé. Clara didn't know who would find it. The groom, maybe? His mother? Or maybe Emily herself in the chaos of slicing that first ceremonial piece. That was the beauty of it, the uncertainty, the inevitability. The morning of the wedding, Clara delivered the cake herself. She placed it on the long table draped in white linen, surrounded by flowers and gold-trimmed plates. People smiled at her, thanked her, called her an angel. She smiled back the way only a woman who has stopped needing their approval can smile. And as she walked away, leaving the cake to sit like a jewel in the center of the celebration, she didn't feel guilt. She felt balance. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with a gavel. Sometimes it comes with buttercream and patience. And sometimes if you've been quiet long enough, it comes with a slice. The reception was a glittering theater, all chandeliers and polished silver with the scent of roses so thick it clung to the air like perfume you couldn't wash off. Clara stood at the edge of it, invisible among the servers, her black dress blending into the shadow of a marble pillar. She watched Emily glide through the crowd, her gown shimmering like a poured moon, her hand looped through her new husband's arm as though she'd been born to hold it. It was strange the way a woman could wear happiness like an accessory. You've seen it before, that curated glow that photographs well but doesn't survive in unguarded moments. Clara kept her eyes on Emily's face, searching for the cracks. The cake stood in the center, lit by a single spotlight as though it were part of the performance. Guests circled it like art critics around a masterpiece. Someone whispered about the sugar flowers, how impossibly delicate they were, how real they looked. Someone else mentioned the lemon curd, saying they'd heard it was Clara's signature. Every compliment was a thread, and Clara pulled each one tighter around Emily's neck without touching her. The speeches dragged on. Emily laughed at every toast, resting her head against her husband's shoulder, letting the light catch her diamond earrings. She was untouchable in that moment, or so she believed. And then the MC announced it, time for the cutting of the cake. The room shifted. Chairs scraped back, phones lifted, camera flashes sparked. The couple took their places, their hands overlapping on the silver knife. Emily leaned into him, her veil brushing the edge of the frosting. You know what anticipation tastes like? It's metallic. Like the moment before a storm when the air changes and your skin prickles. That's what it felt like in Clara's chest. She could hear her own heartbeat under the music. The blade sank into the first layer, smooth and perfect. Cheers rose and the crowd pressed closer. Emily's husband slid the slice onto a plate, holding it up for applause before setting it down. The second cut went deeper, right into the heart of the cake, and that's when it happened. A small, muffled clink, metal against porcelain, just enough to make the groom's brow crease. He set the knife aside and reached in with his fingers, pulling out the capsule. The room didn't notice at first. People laughed, someone shouted for more champagne, but Clara saw the way he turned it over in his palm, curiosity sharpening his features. Emily's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flicked to the capsule, then to Clara so quickly most would have missed it. But not Clara. Oh no, that look was the tiniest fracture in a flawless mask. He opened it. The parchment slid into his hand, almost weightless. He unfolded it slowly, scanning the words. His expression didn't change. That was the most unnerving part. No anger, no shock, just a careful, deliberate stillness. And in that stillness, something shifted. Emily's hand touched his arm. "What is it?" she asked, soft enough that only those closest could hear. He didn't answer. He folded the parchment back, slipping it into his pocket like a secret he intended to keep or to use later. His smile returned wide and camera-ready, as though nothing had happened at all. And that's when Clara realized the truth. She hadn't just lit a fuse. She'd handed it to someone who might set it off at a moment of his own choosing. You think revenge ends when the act is done, but it doesn't. It ripples. It finds new hands, new hearts to inhabit. And sometimes the satisfaction isn't in watching the explosion, it's in knowing it's inevitable. Emily carried on feeding her husband, the first bite laughter spilling from her lips like champagne. But her fingers curled tighter around the fork, and her shoulders didn't fully relax again. She knew the truth had been touched. Maybe not read aloud to the world, not yet, but known. Across the room, Clara let the scene imprint itself on her mind, each detail as precise as the sugar roses she'd crafted. She turned away before anyone could catch her smile slipping out through the service doors into the cool night air. Behind her, music-swelled glasses clinked and the golden girl kept dancing. But the seed had been planted, and Clara knew seeds had a way of breaking through even under the heaviest soil. The night air was heavier than the ballroom, damp with jasmine and the taste of ocean salt that drifted in from the bay. Clara stood by the loading dock, palms still sticky with sugar, and felt the tremor in her ribs calm by degrees. Behind the doors, the orchestra swelled in polite crescendos. In front of her, a moth battered itself against a yellowed security light like it was arguing with fate. She didn't see the woman until the hinge sighed. A perfume like powdered iris cut through the scent of garbage bags and rain. "You always did make the prettiest things," said a voice that could have smoothed the edge off a knife. Lydia, Emily's mother, the quiet matriarch who never raised her voice because she never had to. People bent around her like reeds in a controlled wind. In another life, she might have been a saint. In this one, she was a curator of narratives, the keeper of family myths, the golden daughter, the magnanimous house, the grateful cousin in the kitchen. "Mrs. Hale," Clara murmured. "Not mother, not even Lydia. Titles are cages that sound like kindness." Lydia approached, satin shawl shivering in the breeze. "You should come inside and take a bow. The cake is exquisite." It was the kind of compliment meant to be a leash. Clara felt it circle her throat and refused to let it cinch. "I prefer the back door." Lydia's eyes drifted just for a second toward the service entrance, like she was cataloging the mess mop buckets, a dented dolly, a sliver of broken plate. "Of course," she said. "Some of us are comfortable in the shadows." You know that tone, don't you? The one that sounds like praise and lands like a bruise? People use it when they need you small to feel large. They aren't villains in their own minds. They are gardeners cutting you back for your own good. "I saw the capsule," Lydia added so softly it almost didn't exist. "My son-in-law found something peculiar." Clara met her gaze. "Did he?" Lydia folded her hands. She had pianist fingers, long and capable. "You've always had a theatrical streak, Clara. It would be a pity if tonight were remembered for anything but joy." There it was, the plea disguised as principle. Protect the image, smooth the surface, polish the legend. the quiet mother preserving the golden daughter's shine. "You mean a pity if truth leaked," Clara said. "Isn't it strange how truth is the messiest guest at a party?" Lydia's smile didn't falter, but her eyes cooled. "Family deserves discretion." "Family deserved decency," Clara replied. The words tasted like something she'd been saving. "Do you remember the day you told me I wasn't really a daughter, only a blessing your husband chose to extend?" A flit of surprise quickly buried. "You were welcomed. I was useful." Memory rose like heat, a kitchen too warm for June Emily at the door with her hair ribboned and her shoes clean, Clara in flour up to her elbows, the father who called Emily princess, who called Clara practical, as if value could be sorted like place settings. The first time Emily borrowed Clara's recipe notebook and returned it after a week pages missing where the lemon curd ratios had been. The television scout who'd called Emily directly and said he'd tried to reach Clara but never could. The public praised the private theft, the way the world clapped for a girl who made other people's labor look like her birthright. Do you feel it, that old sting, not hate, recognition, the moment you realize someone built their mirror out of your polished bones? Lydia stepped a fraction closer. "Whatever you think you heard, you misunderstood. Emily loves Adrian." Clara let herself smile. "I didn't mistake love, I recorded ambition." The door swung open again, this time releasing a draft of laughter and a sliver of violin. Adrian's slipped-out jacket, unbuttoned tie, loosened like a secret. Up close he looked younger than he ought to, a man gifted everything but rest. His eyes flicked from Lydia to Clara with a cool assessment that said he made investments as a sport. "Clara," he said, acknowledging her with the nod reserved for competent staff or interesting threats. He put a gentle hand on Lydia's arm. "May I borrow you?" Lydia went composed as a woman rehearsed since birth. She could read a room the way a musician reads a score, already knowing which notes to soften. Watching them, Clara felt that steady certainty again, the fuse passing hand to hand. Inside, the reception morphed. The music brightened, the cocktails thickened the air. Emily spun under the chandelier, all veil and performance, but her smile had become a little too busy, her eyes scanning for a signal. She glanced toward the doors, found no one she needed, and laughed faster. "You've done this too, haven't you? Stretched cheer over panic like a thin sheet over a restless body. It works for a while until it doesn't." Clara returned to the kitchen corridor where the world smelled like citrus peel and dishwater. The pastry assistant, a red-headed girl with a birthmark like a comma at her temple, cornered her. "Someone's asking for you." "Who?" The answer arrived with heels like punctuation. Emily, still in silk, stepped into the dim light and shut the swinging door with her back as if bracing it against a storm. Up close, the gown looked delicate enough to shred with a sigh. "What did you do?" Emily whispered. Not a greeting, a diagnosis. Clara wiped her hands on a towel. "I baked a cake." Emily's lip trembled, then found itself. "You put something in it." "Truth keeps well," Clara said. "I should have known," Emily said. "You never could stay in your place." The sentence landed like a shard of bone. There it was, naked and mean, the line that divided their lives. Not sisters, not in the way that mattered, not even rivals. A princess and a practical girl sorted. Clara held her gaze. "My place, funny, I built your place. I mixed it, rolled it, piped it, and when you needed a story to wear, I tailored it." Emily flinched. "You're jealous." It would have been easier if she were. Jealousy is loud. It burns out quickly. This was colder, older. "I'm finished," Clara said. "That's different." Emily's eyes flashed. "If you think Adrian will care, he won't. He knows how things work." Clara thought of the folded parchment in his pocket, the stillness that had replaced his smile for a beat too long. "We'll see," she said softly. "Men who collect empires also collect truths, for leverage." For the first time, Emily looked truly afraid, not because her husband might leave, but because he might stay and change the terms. The shadow wife is the one who lives in the contract after the party, bargaining pieces of herself to pay off what the dress promised. "Fix it," Emily begged, voice paper thin. "Tell him you lied. Tell him you're unwell." There it was again, the myth Lydia curated, the grateful cousin, the fragile intruder. "You've been offered this script, haven't you? Lay down your reality and be loved for your silence." Clara stepped aside, opening the door with 2 fingers. "The cake is perfect," she said. "The rest is between you and your pocket." Emily stared, a doll with chips suddenly visible beneath the glaze. "You'll regret this," she whispered. Maybe Clara said, and she almost meant it, "but I won't forget myself to stop it." Behind them, the music climbed. Ahead, the hallway stretched toward cold air and the honest night. Somewhere in the ballroom, a man weighed paper against promise, and a mother rehearsed a script to save a crown. Clara walked toward the service exit, spine lengthened by the clarity of refusal. Clara didn't leave the property. Not yet. She stepped into the shadows near the valet drive where the manicured hedges rose like green walls and the glow from the ballroom windows spilled across the gravel. The night had teeth now, the wind sharper, the sea smell stronger, as if the elements themselves were leaning in to watch. Inside the party reached its fever. She could hear the applause through the glass, could almost feel the pulse of the bass against her ribs. That's the thing about moments like this, they have a rhythm, a countdown you can sense without seeing the clock. Somewhere inside the balance was shifting. She could smell it the way you smell rain before it falls. She saw Adrian first. He slipped out onto the terrace with 2 groomsmen in tow, the kind of men who spoke in quick bursts and avoided depth like it might drown them. They laughed too loudly, but Adrian didn't. He leaned against the balustrade, sipping his drink, his gaze distant. His pocket bulged slightly, the folded truth still riding there like a silent passenger. You know the weight of something you haven't decided how to use yet. It's almost intoxicating. Clara recognized the look on his face, not shock, not even betrayal, but calculation. She'd seen it in her father's eyes when deciding whether to sell land or hold until the market bent in his favor. The groomsmen drifted back inside and Adrian remained. He glanced toward the glass doors, then at Clara, catching her in her hiding place. Instead of surprise, he gave her a nod like a man acknowledging a co-conspirator. Then he walked away, disappearing into the night garden. Moments later, the terrace doors opened again. Emily. Her gown caught the light, but her face didn't. She scanned the terrace, didn't see Adrian, and bit her lip in that small, girlish way she used to get sympathy from anyone who could be useful. And here's the truth no one says out loud. People like Emily don't fear scandal half as much as they fear losing control of the story. Scandal they can spin. Loss of narrative leaves them naked. Lydia appeared behind her, a whisper in satin. Clara couldn't hear the words, but she could read the choreography, the hand on Emily's arm, the nod toward the ballroom, the insistence to go back in and keep dancing. Emily shook her head, glancing toward the garden. Lydia's expression hardened, not anger, but strategy. She leaned closer, speaking low and deliberate. Emily's chin lifted in defiance before she turned sharply on her heel and strode into the garden herself. Clara's heart was a slow drum now. The stage was set. Somewhere between the roses and the marble fountain, the golden daughter and her prize would meet in the dark. And whatever passed between them would either disappear under polite lies or bleed into everything. She followed, keeping to the shadows, the crunch of gravel under her shoes, masked by the music from inside. Emily's voice cut through the night, first low, urgent. Who told you? Adrian's reply was quieter. Does it matter? It matters if you're going to believe. I believe in proof, he said. The crispness in his tone startled even Clara. This was not the charming man from the reception line. This was the version that made deals in closed rooms. You don't understand, Emily pressed. It was a joke, just words. Some jokes, Adrian said, cost more than they're worth. Clara could picture it without seeing Emily stepping closer, her hand on his lapel, eyes wide and wet. She'd used that look her entire life, a glassy reflection of whatever the other person needed to see. You love me, she whispered. There was a pause, the kind that swallows all the air around it. I love what I thought you were, Adrian said. You've heard this, haven't you? Maybe not in those words, but in the way someone stops reaching for you while still standing close. It's not a door slam, it's a silent unhooking of their hands from your future. Emily's voice cracked. So what now? You call off the wedding, humiliate me. That's what she wants. His tone sharpened. Clara. Her name spat like a seed. She's been jealous of me since we were girls. She'd do anything to see me ruined. Silence again, then Adrian's voice lower. Maybe she just knows what she's worth. Clara's pulse flickered. She couldn't see his face, but she knew he wasn't defending her. Not exactly. He was recognizing something in her the same way a predator recognizes another. Emily's breath hitched. We can forget this, it's just noise. We'll be fine. But her voice had lost the glitter, and she knew it. Adrian didn't answer right away. Then footsteps, his retreating toward the far gate. Emily didn't follow. Clara stayed still until the sound faded. Then she stepped back toward the building, leaving Emily alone in the dark, with her gown pooling like spilled milk on the gravel. Inside, the orchestra shifted to a slow waltz, and Lydia's voice floated over the hum, laughing too brightly. Clara slipped through the service door again, letting the warmth and scent of champagne wrap around her. Somewhere, Emily would return, face-powdered smile reheated, and no one would suspect the fracture beneath. But fractures, Clara knew, have a way of spreading. Clara stayed near the back of the kitchen where the hum of the walk-in refrigerator and the clang of dishware gave her cover. She didn't need to watch Emily walk back into the ballroom. She could picture it, veil-adjusted smile sharpened to that perfect public angle. The pastry assistant slid past with a tray of Petit Four's, eyes darting toward the door. "She's back," she whispered, almost conspiratorial. "Looks like nothing happened." That was the trick, wasn't it? Convince the room nothing happened, and for a while it becomes true. For a while. Clara leaned against the counter, letting the chatter from the dining hall filter through the service window. Toasts, clinking laughter climbing like ivy over the music. Yet underneath there was a subtle change, a current you wouldn't notice unless you were listening for it. People were speaking in smaller knots, leaning closer, their voices dropping between sentences. You know this shift, the quiet gravity of suspicion starting to pull. It's the space between a whisper and a headline when people still think they're the only ones who've noticed something. The kitchen door swung open and Lydia entered, alone this time. Her shawl was folded over her arm, her earrings catching the dim light. She didn't move toward Clara right away. She stood by the counter watching the staff move in precise patterns. "Finally, you should leave." Clara's voice was even. "Why?" "Because I know what you've done, and so will everyone else sooner than you think." Lydia stepped closer. "If you stay, you'll be the villain. People will forget whatever my daughter may have said. They'll remember only that you chose her wedding day to make a scene." There it was, the family strategy distilled. Reframe, recast, control the record. "Truth isn't a scene," Clara said. Lydia smiled sadly like she was explaining something to a child. "Truth is a luxury. Reputation is survival." For a fleeting moment, Clara wondered if Lydia believed that or if she'd simply repeated it enough times to make it feel like a creed. Either way, she wasn't wrong about one thing: the tide of perception was fickle. People didn't like complications in their fairy tales. But Clara hadn't hidden the truth for applause. She'd hidden it for the one who mattered, Adrian, because now he carried it, not her. She didn't need to hold it anymore. She slipped off her apron and hung it on the hook. "I'm leaving," she said, "but not because you told me to." Lydia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because you think you've already won." Clara shook her head. "Because the game isn't mine anymore." She pushed past her, stepping into the service hall. From the corner of her eye, she caught a flicker of movement, the red-headed assistant watching curiosity burning behind her freckled face. Out in the cool night, the valet was juggling keys and small talk with guests ducking out for smoke breaks. Clara lingered near the hedges, looking back just once through the tall windows. Adrian was back inside, glass in hand, standing apart from the crowd. He wasn't looking at Emily. He wasn't looking at anyone, really. His gaze was fixed somewhere in the middle distance, the way someone stares when they're mentally rewriting a contract. Emily, meanwhile, was dancing again, if you could call it that. She moved through the steps, her hands on shoulders, her lips brushing cheeks in air kisses. The gown shimmered. The laugh rang out. But her eyes flicked toward Adrian every few minutes, searching for signs. Clara wondered if Emily could feel it yet, the reversal. How quickly charm can become a plea when the person you're dazzling holds something that could undo you. You've seen that look, haven't you? The one that tries to erase a moment by pretending it never happened, even as the fear of its return gnaws from the inside. Clara turned away, walking down the long gravel path toward the main gates. The music faded, replaced by the hum of insects in the grass. Every step felt lighter, though she carried nothing in her hands. Revenge, she thought, was rarely about the act. It was about the release, putting down the weight someone else made you carry, even if they never thank you for it. When she reached the street, a car slowed beside her. Adrian was in the back seat, window down, tie completely undone now. Leaving so soon, he asked, voice low. Clara met his gaze. "My part's done." He studied her for a beat too long. "You may have changed everything tonight." "Or nothing," she said. Adrian's mouth quirked, almost a smile. "Nothing doesn't look like this." He tapped his jacket pocket lightly, then signaled the driver. The car pulled away, taillights bleeding into the dark. Clara watched it go, the air cooler now, the night finally still. Somewhere behind her in the gilded room she'd left, the golden daughter was still dancing under the chandeliers. But the music had changed for her, and Clara had stopped needing to hear it. By the time Clara reached her apartment, the adrenaline had worn down into something quieter. Not exhaustion, but a strange, steady calm like the sea after a storm. The street outside was empty, save for the flicker of a broken street lamp and the occasional hiss of tires passing in the distance. She slipped out of her shoes at the door, the cool floor grounding her in a way no ballroom ever could. The scent of sugar still clung to her, ghosting the air in the small kitchen where she set her keys down. She thought she'd want to collapse, maybe pour herself a drink, but instead she stood at the counter, hands flat against the wood, and simply breathed. The night felt finished. But endings are deceptive things. The phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a number she didn't recognize. She let it ring twice before answering. "Clara!" Adrian's voice was unmistakable, smoother now, like he'd already decided something. "You don't waste time," she said. "You gave me something tonight," he replied. "I don't think you realize how much." She leaned against the counter. "And what do you plan to do with it?" A pause. Leverage is best kept quiet until it's needed. Clara almost smiled. "So you'll keep her?" "For now," he said. "Marriage is complicated. There are benefits even with cracks in the foundation. But knowing where the cracks are, that's priceless. You've been here before, haven't you, watching someone turn truth into currency? It's not good or evil. It's survival dressed in silk."
"And me?" Clara asked.
"You're not my enemy," Adrian said. "If anything, you've made yourself useful." She let that hang between them. "Useful isn't a place I stay." He chuckled low. "Maybe not, but I think you know more than you've shown. About Emily. About the family." Clara's silence was its own answer. "I'll be in touch," he said, then ended the call. She set the phone down. The apartment felt different now, not a sanctuary, but a stage left in darkness, while the next act assembled itself somewhere she couldn't see. In the days that followed, the wedding became a collage of curated images on social media. Emily and Adrian locked in mid-laugh, the cake gleaming under soft light champagne flutes catching the sparkle. Comments bloomed with envy and admiration. No one could tell that behind those smiles a quiet shift had begun. Clara didn't comment. She didn't even look more than once. But she noticed when Lydia called her, not with anger, but with an invitation. "Sunday dinner," Lydia said. "It's been too long." Clara almost laughed. "Is Emily aware of this?" "She doesn't need to be." There was something in Lydia's tone, not warmth, but a recalibration. Clara understood it, the matriarch drawing her into orbit again, this time not as the quiet cousin, but as someone who had proven she could tip the balance if she chose. That Sunday she went. The house was the same as always, roses in the front crystal in the dining room, a table set like a magazine spread. Lydia greeted her with that polished smile, but there was a flicker of something sharper behind it. Emily was already seated, her hands folded too neatly on her lap. The gown was gone, replaced by a silk blouse, but her eyes had the same restless flicker Clara had seen in the garden. Adrian poured Clara a glass of wine himself. To family, he said his gaze holding hers a fraction too long. And in that moment, Clara understood the new shape of things. She wasn't outside the story anymore. She was inside it, but not as the obedient shadow. She was the unknown variable, the one neither Emily nor Lydia could predict, and the one Adrian was keeping closer than comfort should allow. You see, some truths aren't weapons you fire once. They're a currency you can keep spending as long as you don't squander them. Dinner passed in layers of conversation that meant more than they said. Lydia asked about Clara's baking business. Emily complimented the cake with the faintest edge in her voice. Adrian listened more than he spoke. When Clara left, the sun had dipped low, staining the sky in bruised gold. She walked down the drive without looking back, the weight in her chest gone entirely now. The woman who knows her worth doesn't beg, she watches. Then she rises.